reliable international news source called Vos is Nice.
Because it's not reported anywhere else.
Uh-huh. You know, I
The first place they tell them.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, it's more than that. It's more than that. I don't listen to the news and find out what's going on. I make up in my mind what's going on. Then I try to find somebody who said it. Hey, so we are up to the two dots. Boyer up zero. Yesterday we learned about the insane crookedness of the mind of a thief, and he will even see someone else's talus, according to Abaye, because maybe he owed me money. English, but maybe he owed me money. That's how a guy will justify stealing someone's talus, but he won't swear. So he has such a warped mind. Since it's possible that maybe he once stole from me, therefore I justify grabbing his talus, but I still won't cross the red line of swearing. So that was one of the pshatim in why the Shnai Mochsim Talus swear. The most common pshat that we had was Rabbi Yochanan, and it's Xera, so that people shouldn't just start seizing people's talis. Takfa echad b'fanenu. What if one of them seized it in the front of the other one? Which Rashi explains as follows: so two people are oichsim b'talis, and then one pulls it away from the other one, and now and this all happened koydem shenishbu, before they had a chance to swear. Ma what's Allah? Let's get some more detail here. Hey Chidami, either shasik, if when let's say Reuven pulled it away from Shimon didn't say, "Hey, what's going on over here?" Then I do idolate. Obviously, he's moidish because kaida that it really does belong to the other guy. Vidikatzavach, and if he's screaming, so then my havalela mevet. What's he supposed to do? He should go punch the guy in the nose. We know that they were both holding onto it, and one person grabbed it. Zogt Gemara Leitricha, the Shasik Meikar. They were in Bezin, Shnai Mochsim B'talis, and one of them pulled it away from the other guy. And right away he didn't react. But a little bit later, V'hada Tzavach, and he reacted a little bit later. My what halacha? Mida ashtik, from the fact that right his initial reaction, his instinctive reaction was not to say nothing. Therefore, ideal idolay, idilma kivan de katzavach hashta, that he's screaming now, igloy milsa, it shows us that it wasn't because he was moide, that he was shasak. The shasak mekara, so he thought, we're right here in Bezin. We came in together. They saw what the situation was. You see, he grabbed it away from me. I'm going to start fighting in Bezin. I'm going to do this in an official way. So that's the shaila. Does his initial reaction have to be to scream, or it's enough that he shows you later on that I didn't scream because you're watching? Amar Rav Nachman Toshma. Let's see if we could bring a raya to this. When do we say Yachaloiku, which is our Mishnah's psak, is sheshneim adukim, when they're actually both physically holding on to this garment? But if only one person was holding it, as Rashi says, Yoitza lefnei bezdin mitachas yaro echad shehu levade echas bavloi chaderei. If two people come into bezdin and they each say this beggar belongs to me, but only one of the two people are holding on to it, hamoitze mechaver olavarai. Hey, what is this case? It can't be the way I just explained it. Ineme kidekatani, pshita. It's not Shnai Mochsim B'talis. It's one guy's Oichos B'talis. I don't need a Bryce to tell me or a Tana to tell me that if one guy's holding on to it, that it's his. Ella, what must be the case? Ella Takfa echad b'fanenu. The Bryce that says, B'med v'armam sheshnei madukimba, Alois Talis Yotzah Mitachas Yotzah Shalechad Mehen, that means even if this happened in front of us, even if Bezin saw one person grab it from the other person, there's still a halacha of a mochi mechaver olav haraya, which would paskin, in fact, that it belongs to the person who grabbed it. So you have a right to our shaila. Maybe that's not what the Bryce is referring to. Hacha b'may askinon, going to also lekamon k'tetvisu lo tarvayu. What happened is they both came into Bezin holding. And we told them the psak halacha. They swore, and then we said zilu plugu, go split it. V'nafku, they left Bezdin, and we thought it was over. And then an hour later, they come back with a new case. They come back in, and there's one guy screaming at the other guy, but this time only one of them are holding it. So, hi, Amr, I do idly. The person who's holding it says, you know why I have it? Because after we walked out of Bezdin, he was moided that it was really mine. But hi, Amr, and the person who's not holding it says, Bidami agartin LA. What do you mean? I am entitled to have to beg it. I rented my half to him temporarily, but now I want it back. We don't believe the second guy. You know what? You know why we won't believe the second guy? Immediately we told him, I don't understand. You just accused him of being a goslin. You slept with the bed and you made him swear. And now you're a genius. You go rent it to him without him. Obviously, you're lying. Or you could say kidikatoni. It's funny. The Gemara considers that a legitimate shot in the Brisa, and the Gemara does not say pshita, right? The Gemara is happy to say that was the case, and the reasoning for it is because atashta, but nevertheless that's not a pshita. The Ibayisema, or there's another alternative as to how we can understand it. Brisa is kidikatoni, like it says, the asula kamon kitavas lachad minayu. One of them is holding it. I'm not sure what that means. He's holding on to it a little bit. He's just not schlepping. What does he touch? So one guy is in control of it, but one guy is still hanging on a little bit. So there, the chiddush is that you say a much even according to Sumchus, the Amar Mamoin Hamutul Besofik Cholkin Beloy Shvua, and as Rashi further clarifies, the Mekel B'Chaluka. Shmuel normally, Sumchus is Mekel B'Chaluka. We had him referenced at the beginning of the Masechta. V'loy Matzur Chafilu Shvua. Whenever there's a moment on Mutul B'Sofik, he says split it, and he doesn't require a Shvua. Still, in this case, Itzrich Lashmi'ina on the Bechai Gavna Moidi Sumchus. The Brisa needs to tell us that Sumchus would agree in this case. Ta'afilu b'Shvua Loishak. To allow moment on Mutul B'Sofik. So it could be without Sumchus, we wouldn't need the Chiddush of Masach Basaruchi doesn't count. But Sumchus is always leaning towards the psak of Yachloiku. He likes Yachloiku. So you would think, here you would say Yachloiku as well. Maybe with a shul, but at least you would say Yachloiku. Moed Sumchus, the Sir Chalav Klumu, it's as if he has nothing at all. And even Sumchus would be moida that the Muchzik will get to keep it. And now it starts to get exciting. Im Tim Saloimar, Takfa Echad B'Fanenu, Machino Shemiyadai. If you hold that if one would have chapped it from the other one, so exactly in this case, two people came into Bezdin holding it, in front of Bezdin, one chapped it away from the other guy was quiet initially and protested later, let's say you held Machino Shemiyadai, meaning the tfisa that he made had zero validity to it. So therefore the halacha would be, Hikdisha in a Mekudeshes. If the person didn't chap it, he was makdish it, because we know Amirasa Lagvai Masirasa Lahedjit. So maybe being makdish it is as if you physically chapped it. If chapping doesn't work, making it hektish surely would not work. Let's stop a moment and let's see Rashi. If you want to be poshed our shaila, the Maitina meaning the tfisa doesn't help. So Kdisha b'lay Takfa is Eina Mukadeshes, the lay ala Mekdisha mitakfa. Clearly, the Mesirasai Lahedjit, I mean Rasai Lagvarik Mesirasai is surely not stronger than an actual Mesir Lahedjit. So if grabbing it wouldn't help, being Makdish it wouldn't help either.
I'm not going to have it.
You won't have it either. Okay, Gavalti. But this also touches on another concept that we're going to get involved with, and that is, if I grab it and you're going to take it away from me, that clearly shows I have zero interest in it. But if I grab it and then I'm going to be able to keep it, it shows that even before I grab it, I have a certain financial interest in it because I have a chus that if I grab it, I get to keep it. Because in order to be makdish it, you have to own it first. You can't put the cart before the horse. Just because I'm a Yerusha L'Gvoy, Mr. Yerusha L'Hedjit, but it has to be yours to make that I'm a Yerusha L'Gvoy. So therefore, if you're going to hold that if someone actually grab it, he wouldn't he wouldn't have to give it back. He would get to keep it. Well, what would be the halacha of hektisha v'loy takfa? Now, what would be the halacha? Kivan amar ami rasa l'gvay kimus rasa l'hedit. Come on to takfa dami, but we have to add a little bit of explanation to it because it might be come on to takfa dami, but in order for my amira to be valid, I also have to have an ownership in it. So we're going to have to see where that comes from.
Takfa works, then it shows that you have a little bit of ownership.
So that's what it must. That's what it must be. That's why I understood it. But why am I building this up? Because I think I'm wrong. But I thought that since if I take it, it's mine. So even now I have a little bit of a teacher in it. That's enough for me to be makdashit. Or maybe right now you didn't take it yet. So right now you don't have it. When it says in the pasuk, the ish ki yakdish is beisai kodesh ma beisai b'shusai. What can you be makdish? Something similar to your home. Just like your home is in your rishus. When was the last time the Gemara heard about a mortgage? Ma beisai b'shusai. I guess in those days there's no such thing. Av kol b'shusai lafuke hai. It would exclude this to loy b'shusai. Yes, it might be that you could be toivus that you can keep it, but it's not yours. If it's not yours, you could not be makdish. So Tosfos gives a little bit more of an explanation of the shaila, and I think it's not like what we said that it shows you have a financial interest in it. Like what? Like the way I just said? Okay, so maybe I misunderstood Tosfos because I thought Tosfos was saying something else. But let's look at Tosfos. Rashi, according to how the Ram understood it.
Some sources suggest Rashi takes it to front and it goes to the.
There's a famous sugya that you always hear, Takfa Kohen. You're learning Takfa Kohen, right? Takfa Kohen is like a Welt sugya. So they were learning Takfa Kohen. And I guess the nuances of how these work is probably what the other yeshivas get excited about. You know, I just get excited about finishing to the bottom of Amud. Okay, so let's see first the Raya, because the Dibra Maskal, let's just see Tosfos here. It's easy Tosfos. Umari Nami, this is not the Tosfos that I'm looking for, but nevertheless, let's see what it says. Umari Nami kagoin shesasak v'shasha hikdish. It has to be a similar case to the shaila that we had with grabbing it. So shasak v'shasha hikdish ula b'soif, and later on kishashala gizbar, when the gizbar said, "Okay, I'm here to collect," Shavach, that's when he screams, says, "No, it's mine." He had no right to be makdashit. Umaboy lay, and the shaila of the Gemara is as follows: Kivan dami rasul legvaya, kimis rasul hedyed. Therefore, have a hektish ketakfa. Hektish is as if I seized it. The kibin shesasak, since the person was silent when his opponent made it hektish. Adi have a hektish. Zokt toises v'loy dami legeza v'loy nishayishu abaylam. Let's not compare this to geza v'loy nishayishu abaylam. There, side the gazlan. Inside the nigzal cannot make it hektish. The shneim ein yicholim lahaktish zelefi shein shaloi. The gazlan is because it's not his, so he can't be makdish something that's not his. The zelefi shein b'shuzoi, and the nigzal can't be makdish it because it's not in his control anymore. Why not? The kiven the oidilei. Once he is moida, meaning once he was silent at the time that the opponent was makdish it, have a kapikadon sheyeshloi b'yara chayrim. We look at it like even whatever he has in it is only a pekadon on behalf of the person who seized it. So we look at it like the person who seized it is sayid shaloi and sayid pershusoi. And whatever interest the opponent has, it's only the interest of a shomer, meaning it's considered both the belonging to the person who seized it and it's considered in his rishus as well. The yochel haktish. The mucher ba'moicher sasvina gabehuda Isaac carry. It was some type of vegetables he brought. The loy kaiti the mayu have a kedushos. The oidilma hektish lo have it kifa. Maybe hektish would not be kifa. It wouldn't even be as strong as kifa. The lomi yitzavech b'shul dvara. Memela, you can say if someone sees the thing out of my hand, it's incumbent on me to protest immediately. But because you said hektish, I don't have to even take you seriously. Umaisi mahi mesusa, and we bring a raya from hi mesusa, the hikdish shad b'shosek. So that's what we're going to move on in a minute. So let's see the Gemara, and then we'll come back because this next Tosfos is actually referring to Amud Beis. So let's see what the Gemara says. Tashma. Let's see if we can bring a raya to the Shaila. So on the tzad that takfa, You don't take it away from him. So if he would grab it, he would be able to keep it. What would be if instead of grabbing it, he was makdish it through the method, through the mechanism of will we treat his being makdish it as if he seized it? And as Mati added, as Avigdor added, do we say that he has enough interest in it even before he seizes it that he can even make it hektish in the first place? So Toshma, the Himasusa, there was a bathhouse. There was a bathhouse. The maskana of the Gemara is that this bathhouse was a property. It wasn't just a mobile bathhouse, because there's a discussion if it's metaltalin or if it's mekarki, but it is going to be mekarki. They were two people arguing in the ownership of this masusa. One said it's mine. So what happened? One of them stood up, and like Tuvi says, "You're going to fight with me." He made it hektish. He was makdish to masusa. So right away, this masusa, which had a phenomenal revenue, right? We walk by the car wash here, and there's everyone that's packed there. I think to myself, you have people that have cars that are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they're crashing their car. My brother-in-law once asked one of his friends in the company that he worked for, very wealthy guy, "What are you doing this weekend?" He said, "I'm washing my car." So he said, "I don't understand. You don't do anything for yourself. You're a big executive. You fly on private jets. You don't polish your shoes. You barely wipe yourself when you go to the bathroom. But you're gonna wash your car?" He said, "Yeah, it's my car." So he said, "Don't you have you crazy?" But the car is the avodah zarah. So they had a very big revenue stream. All the biggest rebbes came to their mikveh. And Parshimine, once this was already in a dispute, in a Suffolk Hektish, suddenly they lost some of their biggest customers. Parshimine, Reb Chananya, Reb Oishia, and of course, once the two Rosh Hashivas don't use that mikveh anymore, V'chulu Rabbanon, that's it. They're now out of business because nobody wanted a toivel in a mikveh that might be hektish. Oh, Americans. And Rabbi Oishia told Rabbah, we need to get down to the bottom of this. We don't want to put this guy out of business. We need to get clarity if it's hektish or not. So when you go to Reb Chisda in the city called Kefri, boy minay, ask him what's the halakha over here, so we could know what to do. Kiyasa l'sura, on his way to Kefri, he actually stopped off in Surah. Surah was along the way. He also was already asking the Olim what to do. So Amalei Rav Nuna told him the following. Masnizani, this whole shaila that you have there about your Masusa, in fact, is mentioned Mefurish in the Mishnah. Okay, let's stop for one moment, and now I want to go back to Tosfos. V'hacha dechitakva. Nira zak Tosfos, the hachi mibayalei b'Masusa. This is the question that they had about a Masusa. Given the makarka, since this Masusa is karka, and by karka, when two people fight over it, there's no muksuk directly on it. So therefore, vavadina kol alam govar. The rule is whoever is stronger, whoever has a stronger hand, takes it. So therefore, the chivan the im takfa echad, and one of these two, balei din, sees the merchas. It seems like right now, the merchas is equally controlled by both of them, similar to a case of shnaim oichsum betalas. So you have two people fighting over a merchot, and they seem to both have the same control over it. And then, if one of them would have chapped it, the iktisha, and he would have been makdishit kishibi yodai. How he takes cards, he forces the other guy out. I'm not sure physically how that will be done, but he prevents the other guy from coming and he takes over. You know, if you want to know how to do something like that, speak to the Bava verse, the 45th and the 48th, and they'll tell you how you seize a besmedrash. What? Well, you just exchange the combination there and put an extra two combinations as well. Very good. And just write on all the other locks, they're broken.
Making a petition.
Gewaltig. Okay? So the chivin im takfa echad. Zeistach is a Baba for deep down inside. He deflected right away from Baba. The chivin im takfa echad. The ikdisha kishibi yodai. Since if he would have seized it first and then be makdish, mistam asulai paka, then the hektish would not have went off. Afilu chazer chaveru v'takfa mimenu. even though afterwards his friend would have went and seized it away. So therefore, maybe being makdish even without the kiva should be hektish. So this is maybe where I misunderstood it, but maybe that's what Tosh is saying now. Now that we're talking about it together, since if I was makdish it, since if I seized it and I was makdish it would be irrevocable. So maybe it shows I have something in it, and therefore, if I'm makdish it even before I'm taking it, maybe it's also hektish, because the fact that if I took it, it would be mine, and then I can be makdish it, shows I have some type of ownership stake in it enough to be makdish. Or maybe even if one person grabbed it, if the other person grabs it away from him, Zoicha, he would get it. Of course, this is all before anybody made it hektish. Who adin hektish below Takfa, lo yuchal hektish klal. The hektish shouldn't be klal at all. Kiva the chaver im Takfa ha yizoicha. The alam hektish mit kifa. Hektish should not give us any more koyach than kiva was. And the fact of the matter is, if you grabbed it away from me and you were not makdish it, I can grab it back. So therefore, you being makdish it shouldn't be any better than that. Okay, so now let's go back to the Gemara, see the raya that it wants to bring. So Zokar Vamnuna, your big machlokes here that you're unsure about is really a Meforsha Mishnah. Okay, Zok Tehilga Mishnah. What is Allah? Safek B'chayris. What if you have a Safek B'chayris? What is the definition of Safek B'chayris? Zokt Rashi. Safek B'chayris is going behema sheyolda, a behema that gave birth. Ve'ein yadua im bichur kfar im loy. We don't know if this animal had already had a child, and therefore this is not a bechor, or maybe this is the firstborn and it is a bechor, and the bechor is a carbon. It goes to the Kohen, if it has a move, that is. So the Allah Shavik bechors, echad bechor adam. Say if it's a bechor adam, what would be the case of a suffix by a bechor adam? Rashi's kohen shapila imay lefanav. The mother, because in Mela by Behema, maybe no one remembers if it gave birth before. But any woman's going to remember if she ever gave birth. So how could it be a Safek B'char? The mother had a miscarriage before this child was born. Safek Dabar Poiter B'B'chara. Safek Ruach Apila. It's a question if it's a real vlad or not. And if it's not a real vlad, it was just a Ruach, then Habo Achara of B'char. So the halach is again, Safek B'char is Echad B'char, Echad B'char, Behema, Bein Tahirin, Bein Tameim. It doesn't matter if they're a Behema Tahira, where the animal itself is kadosh, or if it's a behemoth tameah, the only behemoth tameah that has any status of a bechor is kagoyin peter chamor. The halach is hamoitzi mechaver olavarayah. As far as the monistic discussion, whether or not it has to go to the Kohen has zero claim. Hamoitzi mechaver olavarayah. So Rashi kosol kadaita in beyad Yisrael, the animal is currently in the hands of its owner. And now the Kohen wants to demand it because he's entitled to it. Have a Kohen moitzi mechaverai, and therefore olavarai. The Kohen doesn't get it because he's a moitzi mechaverai. Then Takfa Kohen, v'shasak Yisrael, and under these same circumstances, and the Gemara is being medayik from the fact that the Mishnah uses the words hamoitzi mechaverai olavaraya and doesn't say it stays by the Yisrael. It could have just said it stays by the Yisrael. It doesn't say that. It says hamoitzi mechaverai olavaraya, which is mashma that sometimes the coin can get flipped, and sometimes the owner could be the moitzi mechaverai. So therefore, Rashi is saying from there you know then Takfa Kohen. If the Kohen would have chapped it, the Shosach Yisrael but the Tzavach, exactly our Shaila that we had, have a Yisrael moitzi mechaverai. Now the Yisrael is moitzi mechaverai. So the status of this animal is exactly the same status as our Shnai Moichlim Betalis, and at any given moment one can seize it away from the other guy. And if you hold ein moitzin miyadai, then you have the moitzi mechaverai of Araya. So right off the bat, the assumption is that this price holds takfai ein moitzin miyadai.
But over there, it's not exactly the same.
The Kohen has some dibs in this. There's a possibility of the Kohen.
It's a question of who it belongs to.
Yeah, but there's a premise that it might be his.
I think you're going to like the conclusion of the Gemara.
You don't have a mitzvah chaver from a raya, actually.
Why not? The Gemara says that if one guy chaps away from the other guy and he's shasak and then tzavach, the guy gets to keep it. Why does he get to keep it? Because now I'm the moitzi mechaverai.
Oh, because of mitzvah chaver.
Of course. So Vatani Allah, even though Lagabe Dinim Mominus, Lagabe the status between the two people, there is still the premise of a Moitza Mechabal of Araya.
What does it got to do if he has violence on it or not? He's still a mitzi. If you said it has if he's takfa, then he could.
If the Kohen would have grabbed it,
Takfa kind of in our case,
right?
he grabbed it.
And I was quiet when you grabbed it, so I didn't protest. And then 10 minutes later, I said, hey, give it back to me. And the reason why I didn't grab it because your best was watching. No, forget Makdish. Let's not get Hektish involved here. Let's just talk about the Dinim Mominus. See, we had a Shaila. What would be the halacha if you grabbed it, I was silent, and then I protested? The Gemara had a Shaila, right? The Gemara said, Imtim Tzalaimer, that you get to keep it. What would be the halacha with Hektish? But let's not get to Hektish. There is a Shaila whether or not you get to keep it. And if you'll then you'll say and it's yours, and I don't have any rights to it anymore. So let's not get into the Hektish part. But Tanya Allah, now we're introducing the Hektish part. Until now, we're only discussing the Dinamaminus part, and we're proving that this Brisa holds that under these circumstances, where our Gemara had it for a Shaila, this Brisa holds, without a doubt, the person who grabbed it gets to keep it. Because otherwise, why would the Brisa have used the words Hamoitze Mechaver Olav Haraya? It should have just said the Yisrael gets to keep it. It must be that can change, meaning if the Kohen chapped it away, then the Kohen would get to keep it. So now we remember our Shiloh was Imtim Tzaloimer Ein Metzia, and what's halacha b'hektish? So first we have to prove that that's what this price holds, Ein Metzia. So now we've proven that this price holds Ein Metzia. Now let's go to the hektish component. But Tani Allah, and there's a brisa that comments on this exact scenario, Asurim Begiza V'Avodah. And why is it Asurim Begiza V'Avodah? Misavak Shemakachim him. When it comes to a Bechor, there is a dispute in the monetary ownership of this animal, but there's also a Yoredei Shaila here. This might be a korban. If it's a korban, there are certain restrictions on what you're allowed to do with it, and we l'chumra say it's Asurim Begiza Uvavodah, meaning it still has the status of a korban, even though we're in a situation where it's a suffix. So v'yahacha, the Amar Takfa Kohen ein Metzia Oisim. Clearly, our brisa holds that in the case of Takfa ein Metzia Oisim the Katani Hamoitze Mechaver Olav Haraya, which means it could flip, as Rashi says. Earlier, right? Since the Katani Hamoitze Rashi is mashma ben Kohen ben Yisrael, means it could flip. But even if the Kohen didn't touch it and is completely in the hands of the Yisrael, it's still now, even before anything happened, Asur and Begiza V'Avodah. So you have a raya, in fact, that Hektish is stronger. The koyach of Hektish is stronger, not weaker, than the koyach of an actual kifa, and therefore we'll say that being makdish is actually even stronger, and we consider it like a kifa, as Rashi says, V'chiloi takfoi chomer koyach Hektish la'oishran Begiza V'Avodah. The koyach of Hektish is a stronger hand than even the hand of a human actually grabbing you. Shemamina, you see the answer to our shaila. If you hold that, and it seems to prove that you do hold that because the Brisa says that, so it will be hektish. That was the right that Rav Nuna wanted to bring. In fact, this mesusa, this is hektish, and Rav Oishia and Rav Chananya are very justified in not using this mesusa.
It's also Asir Begiz Ba'avodah when it's Biyad Ba'alim, only when Takfa Kohen.
No, even if it's Biyad Ba'alim. That's the point. You see, hektish of the chashtark of the koyach, even unchapping it is.
Does that bring a raya also if he didn't grab it and then he was makdish? We had a question.
That's exactly the shaila. That is exactly our shaila. If he didn't grab it and he was makdish it, is that at least as good as if he grabbed it? And now the Gemara is proving it's even better. It's even better. Here the guy didn't grab it, yet it still has its effect. So Zog the Gemara, Amalei Rabbah, it's so not a raya. It's so not a raya. This is what you're about to say. Amalei Rabbah, Kedushas Bechar Kamrit. You're asking me a kasha from Kedushas Bechar? What are you talking about? You're putting the Kedusha comes by itself. It doesn't come because he was makdish. So you don't have the problem with putting the cart before the horse. And it came by itself. Here the discussion is, can you do it? That you don't prove anything from here. Even if you would all talk about and the Kohen has zero control, zero interest, because even if he grabbed it, it wouldn't be his. It would still be usher. The kedusha This is a kedusha that comes. There's a suffix Yeridei over here, and on the side that it's a bechor, whether or not the Kohen has any interest in it is irrelevant. It's going to be a suffix bechor. It's going to have a kedusha's Yeridei. So therefore, you can't bring any raya from here at all. Zok Rashi, loyal meimalach, gabe bechor, dafilu takfa Kohen mechino shemiyoda, mistama becheskas yisrael. Let's say for sure it's becheskas yisrael, and the Kohen in dini mominus has zero tvisa. And the Kohen is always considered the Metzia Mechavera. He cannot flip. And it would still be Asher Begizav Avodah. Why? The time of the Gizav Avodah, Lav Mishum Yehei Kohen Shum Koyach Behen. So here Rashi is saying black and white, that was our Shaila. Our Shaila was the fact that I have a right to chap it, does that give me Koyach not to be Makdash? Because Rashi is saying it black and white over here. Lav Mishum, I just noticed it as I'm reading it, because second, when you know it again, it comes out clearer. So Lav Mishum Yehei Kohen Shum Koyach Behen. The tivshet we know that you'll be able to bring a raya. No, there's no raya at all. Here, the reason why it's also begins of avodah halachim mishum iser suffix uses culture because it's a plain simple suffix in your idea. Is this a bechor or not? This is not becoming kodesh because the kohen owns it. It's a simple independent Yeridei Shaila. So you can't bring any raya at all to our Shaila. Let me just finish Rashi. In bechor who me'elav kodesh. If it in fact is a bechor without any chayshim mishpatik halachas, it is kodesh. And there's a very legitimate suffix that that's the case over here. In our case of the Masusa, the ain kedusha ba ella al piv shall say. The kedusha will only come if I have a chayshim mishpatik interest in it, and therefore I have a right to be makdish. Aimalach. There I would say that even if you hold that I have enough of a right in it, that if I grabbed it, I'd be able to keep it. You still don't know that a kedusha beloy tak for love hakdish mechadesa. The ein yochel hakdish davar sheni b'shusay. The fact is, this is a davar sheni b'shusay, and you cannot be makdish. So that's why Rava deflected and diffused this raya. So, Malti, what were you going to ask? Rashi first. Okay. So we're just in the middle of a shaklavataria. So let's go on. Amalei Rab Chananya l'Rabba Tanya the Messiah. You know what, Rabba, you have a really good point there, and I even have a raya from a Tana to your assumption, or to your assertion, better. The Messiah loch, the gabi sofik b'choros in Takfa Kohen Metzia Yosy. So you now wanted to paskin our earlier shaila that even if you are taik of it, it's Metzia Yosy. So it's funny how we started all the way in one direction. We had an assumption from this brisa that if the person is taik of a Metzia, and we wanted to extend that to Hektish as well. Now we knocked off the connection to Hektish, and now we're even making an argument that Takfa Metzia Yosy, right? So we want to now be pushed to the other side of the Shaila. Before we do that, I just want to point out a very interesting Tosfos. I don't understand. Even if you hold Ein Metzia Yosy, even in the case of Shnai Mox and Batalas, and one guy chaps it, you don't take it away from him. By a Kohen, why wouldn't you take it away from him? By a Kohen, there's another factor involved. If you look at the third skinny line in Tosfos, Amai Ein Metzia Yosy, even if it's for sure a bechor, who said I wanted to give it to you? I can give it to whoever I want. So regardless, any Kohen that would chop it has no right to keep it. Even if it was a regular Chosh Mishpat, the Kashali didn't keep it. Who said I was going to give it to you? Are you so sure I'm giving it to you? Because it's a knacker? I was going to give it to the other guy. So on that took Tosfos, two terutzim, interesting terutzim. Either V'yeshlemer b'makire kahuna. I always gave it to him. Now I'm not giving it to you anymore. So it's a guy who he always got his stuff. Inami, or Eino Yochel L'Toivoi Rak Toivas Hanosh Yeshlei. If a Kohen chaps my truma, if he chaps my bechor, he doesn't have to give it back to me. All he has to give back to me, he has to pay me the value of the benefit. There's a benefit to me, a financial benefit to me, that I can decide who I'm going to give it to. Whatever that value is, that is what he would owe me. So that's how Tosfos diffuses that question, is that regardless, the Kohen has no right to take it, because who said you're the one? Okay, so now, Tanya the Messiah. So now we're getting back to our sugya. Our shaila was, if one of the guys chapped from the other guy, does he get to keep it or not? We're assuming that he does get to keep it. Now we're turning over and saying the other way, that he doesn't get to keep it. How do you see that? Zakt Gemara from the following. Hasveikos. What is the definition of hasveikos? It's not so simple what hasveikos means. It's mesupik what a suffix is. So let's see what Rashi says. Hasveikos l'kamon mefarish on Omer Aleph. the Gemara is going to clarify that Sveikos means the Suffolk pigeon Peter Chamor. So it was only a question of Peter Chamor. The uniqueness of Peter Chamor is it's not a carbon. What happens is the owner is going to redeem the Chamor with a seh, and they give the seh to the Kohen. But there's no Kedusha Bama Elav on this seh. Right? There's always a Kedusha Bama Elav on the Bechor born a Bechor, but here we don't have a Kedusha Bama Elav. So the command of Farish, Besavik, pigeon, Peter Chamor, what do you do with it? The Mafresh Olav Tle, Lavkui Isur. To take the Isur off the Chamor, what you do is you are poided Peseh, right? Those are the big ceremonies. When you have a pigeon, Peter Chamor, they put the Kedusha from the Chamor onto the Seh. For who la'atzmai? In this case, where we're not sure if the Chamor was a carbon or was a Bechor or not, the Yisrael will get to keep that Seh. She'ein tzorich litn l'kohen. Because it's a suffix in Choshen Mishpat if this Seh was actually being paid a Bechor or not. And therefore, the Kohen doesn't have a right to demand it. So that we could all agree upon. Upidyin Peter Chamor Parisuru. The halacha is if I am paid a Chamor with a Seh, that Seh is still not pater from Meiser. That Seh is still it still has to go into the deer with everybody else, with all the other Seh to get to take Meiser from.
Even if he gives it to the Kohen, or only if he gives it.
So im yesh l'kohen. Good question. So Rashi actually says before. Im yesh l'kohen. Yud pitrei chamorim. What if a Kohen had 10 pitrei chamorim? How did he get them? Shenaf luloi mi beis avi imo Yisrael. So a Kohen from his father-in-law was a Yisrael, and he yarshin 10 pitrei chamoros. So what does Rashi say? Mafresh alayim asar saying. Now he is the owner. He's the proud owner of a pitrei chamor. And so what does he do? And this is a vadai Peter Chamor. What he does is he puts all of the kedusha, each one on one Seh, which is a kasha in and of itself because the law is you could actually use one Seh for all 10. But Rashi is saying you have 10 Seh, so you have 10 Seh that you all transferred kedusha onto them from the Chamor. Uma asran, and the law is then the Kohen has to take ma'aser behema from his own behemoths, the hen shaloi, but the Kohen gets to keep the ma'aser behema too. So he has to go through all the motions, but he gets to keep it. So that's where you see that even the pigeon Peter Chamor, that Seh, you have to take off Meiser from it. Hilchach, therefore, Suffolk pigeon Peter Chamor, now that we're not speaking with a Vadai anymore, we're only speaking about a Suffolk, and it's Biyad Yisrael, Nichlis Adirim Shart Loim. So this animal that he put the Kedusha on is still part of the same herd that it was born with, and it's going to be part of the Meiser process. Im Shart Loim Shaloi Lisaser, and if that's the one that comes out the 10th, then that's treated as Ma'aser Beimah, and he's got to give it to the Kohen anyway. So now let's go back there. If you had a Suffolk pigeon Peter Chamor, you had this one of these animals in your flock, you treat it like anything else. Which means it's possible that this animal that is actually a pigeon Peter Chamor, if it turns out being the 10th one, if that's how it comes out, it's actually going to pater your other 9 animals. If you hold Takfa, meaning that the Kohen must have some minimal financial interest in this animal, which means, why is it that you're allowed to use that animal that the Kohen has some financial interest in to pater up the 9 sheep that are not going to be Meiser? If you do that, you're actually the 10th one that you're giving for Meiser is not even yours. It's not fully yours. So you're using the Kohen's money to pay up your responsibility of Meiser. That would not be logical. So it must be that the Kohen has 0 rights to it, because if he did, it doesn't make sense that you should be able to use this as Meiser Behim. Zokt Rashi, he has even a very fine ownership in it that translates into him being able to keep it if he grabs it. If this animal is the one that went out as number 10, he's actually using the Kohen's money as the Meiser Behemah, that's his. And that doesn't make sense. If that's your whole raya, I'm not impressed. That's not a raya at all. You know why? Maybe the case is he had 9 behemoths plus this one. 9 behemoths by themselves are part of a Meiser. So Mimanushik. Hacha b'may askin going to Leslie elatisha vihu, and this animal that's a suffix. The mother ibar chayuvahu. If it taka belongs to the Kohen, shaper kamaiser. It's not a problem because if it's a bar chayuv in meiser, if the Kohen doesn't have a Kohen in it, then it's not a problem. It's my animal. Ilav bar chayuvahu. If it belongs to the Kohen, taka not part of the group. No big deal. Tisha lav bar shirin. So I'm not benefiting from the Kohen. The Kohen's going to get this animal. He might get the animal because it's his. He might get the animal because it's meiser. But it can't be both. So if it ends up being mine and I use it as the 10th as the meiser, it really means that there was never the Kohen to begin with. So therefore, there's no issue at all. Zok Rashi, ilav bar chayuvahu. I'm sorry, bar chayuvahu. Ihai gavra bar chayuvahu li surei. If this animal is really his, and therefore he has 10 animals, and therefore there's a chiyav ma'aser be'emachal only if you have 10 animals. Shepidyon zeh la pidyon petachamor. Who this pigeon is not really petachamor, meaning if it's igloi milsa that the chamor was not really the firstborn, and this animal that he put the kedusha on really it was just a show, and really it's just a regular animal. So then you have no problem. He has 5 chulundike sheep, the chayv la'asrim, and he's mechuyev to b'masher, and therefore shaper kamaser. If it becomes number 10, there's no issue. But ilav bar chayuvahu shepidyon zeshal kohen. If this animal turns out being the kohen, then he doesn't have 10 animals, so he doesn't have to take masher at all, and therefore lepater lamidi. He's not using the kohen's animal to pater him. There's no chiyav masher here. The tisha lav b'nai yisurin. So that was Abayi's initial thought to deflect. Then the Gemara said the truth of the matter is that's not a good raya. Zok the Gemara. Amar by Abaye said on second thought, lav milsahi. What I'm saying makes no sense at all. Why? Lav milsahi the Amri. The sveika lav vayashuri. The halacha is whenever it's in a matzav of suffix, there's no chiyuv at all to take any meiser at all. Zok Rashi lav milsahi the Amri. The vadai siyati lamar. In fact, you do have a raya that the Kohen has no interest in it, because it is true that if the Kohen had an interest in it, it would not be nichnas ladir. You have a tzad schila Kohen bay misafik. If we do consider the Kohen having even the subtlest of financial interest in it, the ishtakach the cholhani taloyim safik chayavim b'meiser safik ein chayavim, because if one of these 10 there's a safik, so now the question is on this whole batch: are they chayav in meiser because there's 10 animals of chulin here, or are they not chayav in meiser because there's only one animal? There's only 9 animals of chulin, but one we're not sure. If that in fact was the case, for sure, loy habit tzarech laserinu. You wouldn't even have to make a meiser using this memonafsheh, because there wouldn't be a chiv at all, even on the tzad that it's mine. Why? You wouldn't have to loy habit tzarech laserini kidak amrit laser memonafsheh. You wouldn't have to do that. You don't even have to go through the motions. You know why? They call suffix chayiv, suffix putter. When it comes to ma'aser, there's a special pasuk that teaches us that if it's a suffix, lav b'nei isurininu, there's no chiyav ma'aser at all. Only if it's a case of vadai. Even here, you could say that b'monashech it should be good. Doesn't make a difference. You wouldn't have to do it. You wouldn't have to go through the motions. If it's a suffix, you're putter and ganser. There's a special limit by ma'aser to tell you that, and I'm going to illustrate that to Zakabaya from the following mission. The time we learned. Imagine you're counting. You have a whole hundreds of animals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then one of the guys that already are out, free and clear, that are not going to be measured, jumps back in. Now your whole herd has one guy that messes everything up, because we don't know if when we're counting, we don't know if this is the guy who's counted already. So Kafatz Echad ben Amenuyin Soichan, Kulam Paturin, the entire herd is now potter for Meiser. Why was it potter for Meiser? If you hold that if there's a suffix chiv meiser, you still have to do like a mimonavshech to get around the suffix. So then, if that's the case, continue counting, and always make the 10th meiser. And let's think about it. If it turns out that the bar chayuva shaper maaser, then it would be a good meiser. And if it's not a bar chayuvahu, it would be niftar b'minyan haroy. So let's see what this means. Zokt Rashi, you were taking my son Tloyim, and you were counting. So Yoitin, they pass out there. 1, 2, 3. Before he hit number 10, So now the entire herd that's not yet counted has one that has already been counted. So the halach is kulam b'turin. Bein nosim sheyatzu. Even the ones that left already, which will never get to 10, they're also potter. Because if you start counting, that's what Roy means. If you start counting properly and then they got messed up, whatever you counted, they're for sure chulun already. Bein oishin shebesoichadir. Even those that are in there, bafilei nelef. You can have 1,000 animals in there, and now they're all potter from meiser behemoth. Sheyatzu p'turin. The ones that have already been counted are potter minyan haroy, because they're called minyan haroy. If you count, and when you're counting, it's a legitimate counting, they're potter no matter what, even if you don't conclude and end up getting a 10th one. At the time that he counted them, it was legitimate. It would have been continued, and it would have ended up leading to the 10th one being Meiser. The Gemara tells us in Becharis, and we just quoted it down here at the bottom of our Amud, Minyan Haroy Poiter. And what about the ones inside the deer? They are also Pturin. Because this one that got mixed into it, because how do you know that? There's a pasuk for that as well. By Ma'aseh it says, "L'chol asher yaver tachas hashevet amar rachmana v'lo shaver kfar." The only animals that you could put into the Ma'aseh process are animals that you're putting through the shevet. You're counting them with your stick as they go through, but you can't go through twice. And this, all of these animals might have went through already a first time. The chol chad minayu sofek kfar overhu. Every single one of these animals, it's possible that it already went through. If you hold that sveka, no, it could be number 8. Could be number 8. So if you hold that by a suffix, there's still a chiyuv. If you're going to tell me that when I can use a memanavshach to be ma'aser a suffix, I'm supposed to do that. Why? Because maybe you'll be able to be Mekayim, your Chiyav of Meiser. So then, for these Sveikas here, we have a solution for. Nasrinu lahanach the Besoich Hadir Mimanavshach. Let's continue the process with the thousands of animals in the herd, and regardless, it'll be good. Why? Because Kol Yud Sheyoitzin, every 10 that you continue now to count, in Meiser Shalen Bar Chiyuv, if it turns out that the 10th one that was counted was Taka, not that one, it was a real Mechiv one, so then, if there's thousands of animals, only one of them is the problem. So you count. If it turns out that the 10 that you counted now were all legitimate virgin 10s, no problem. It's regular meiser, right? And if it turns out that this problem animal was in the 10 that you counted, and therefore the 10th one wouldn't be meiser because it's not 10 clean animals, it's one that was counted already. Nifter in a meiser, they still are part of a meiser, but right. When you counted, you didn't know that in the middle this bad animal will come in. So the first 10 that you counted, you were counting Amonat. There's 20 animals that are proper animals to be meiser left in. So whatever you counted up until that animal came out was minyan right. Shekishamon Aleph Beis Gimel. There were many tloim that could have been 7, 8, 9, 10, not the one bad guy, and therefore everyone that you counted prior to that would have been a proper counting, and it would be potter. And what's the case? He had yutloim, meaning there would have been a chiyuv on him to take meiser. She counted 5, and then one died. So now he's not mechuyev anymore. So what do you do? One of them in the pens died. The halacha is hamanuyim turin. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that he counted, they're potter. You didn't finish. It doesn't matter because when you counted them, it was a proper counting. What about the ones that are left inside? The 2 that are left, there you just tack on to the next batch. There's a cutoff date every year. You just add these to other animals that will be born before the cutoff date, and if you reach 10, you'll do another meiser process. Whatever you counted already, those are going to be free and clear. The Yalef law, we learned it from Asher Yaver, Veloshik Far Over, like Rashi told us earlier. The Mishaver Tachas Hashavet, once they're counted legitimately, Allah B'Yad L'Asher, and you couldn't conclude, it doesn't matter. Shuv Einam Avira Pamacheres, L'Shiyod L'Tloyim L'Tzarfimah. So basically what Abaye is saying is since any suffix, you're not Meiser, and it says Hasfekos, go l'dir l'saser, it must be that the Kohen has 0.000 interest in it. It's pure Yisrael, and therefore you can put the suffix l'dir because it's pure Yisrael money. And we'll stop here. Middle of Takfa Kohen.
This guy's in the middle. This.
So let's say this guy was number 5.
Number 5. I understand the first 5, but the ones afterwards, it's not a good counting because you had
That's right. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that. I'm gonna have to homework on how you deal with the other 5 that you counted. Because in that group, the ones after that will be a problem. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure. Yeah, I have to look into that.
I'll tell you, Shimmy had a baby boy.
Oh, Mazel Tov.
Four boys.
Wow.
Needs speaking everything.
You have to speak to Shaya's daughter. Or at least if they become friendly, they can each other.
Ryan's 5th was the girl.
Yeah,
With 4 boys.
I think it's Hashem's sense of humor because Shimmy never wanted a big family. Hashem